what's next for open banking in the UK, and whether are we keeping pace globally? So to ask these questions, can I please ask Ellie Hewitt, who's the Director of Payments Consulting at KPMG, to come on stage?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's really exciting to be here to talk about open banking this afternoon and what is next for such an exciting topic in the industry. I think open banking has been one of the most hot topics and exciting topics over the past few years across the FinTech and payments ecosystem. And we're here today to really dive into the potential of what comes next for open banking and what that means in terms of a force for good across the industry. We have a really esteemed panel here to discuss some of those issues today. So I'm joined by Marion King, the Chair and Trustee of Open Banking, Robert Kerrigan, the General Counsel at TrueLayer, Adam Jackson from Innovate Finance, and James Hickman from EcoSpend, the COO. I'm Ellie Hewitt. I lead the open banking team at KPMG. But before we dive into what's next and what that means for consumers across the UK, I thought it would be useful to just start with a bit of a level set of where we are with open banking in the UK and where we've got to so far. So Marion, from a central perspective, would you kick off with that?
Yeah, of course. And so where are we now? Probably something you should know about me is that I'm pretty impatient by nature. So whatever I say, I always want to go faster and harder. But of course, this is central infrastructure. This is central capability. And it was interesting listening to the power of little and large. When you're talking about central, it's somewhat different. You've got the challenges, but we can talk about that. So where are we now? We're doing well, and we're seeing continual growth in terms of volume moving through the infrastructure. So in February, we announced 7 million regular users. That's now 7.75 million regular users as of August. You know, so that's 10% in 6 months. And the February figure was over 100% of what it was the year before. So we're starting to see real growth. Payments, really interesting. In July, we announced 11.4 million payments going through in a month. Last month, in August, it was 11.75 million. So a 3% uptick in a holiday period. So you're seeing volume go through, and this is real volume. You know, we are seeing payments go through. We are seeing API calls. We are seeing sweeping variable payments going through, and we're getting there. But the reality is we've built the foundation, and we've done that largely off the back of PSD2 and, of course, the CMA order. We now need to expand. We now need to ensure that we level up in terms of the quality, the access, and the scope. We need to go beyond the CMA 9. We need to get the JROC plan delivered, and we need to get the new entity set up, and we need to manage and that trust framework and that central ecosystem as effectively as we do today, but much broader. And we need to do it at pace. Such that all the interesting innovators you've seen on the stage already this morning can move ahead at pace as well and fulfill their ambitions to provide better customer service right across the economy. JROC plans have been extended. You know, I won't bore you with all the work streams and all details, but things are being dropped and delivered now, and I'm very optimistic that we will make great progress by the end of the year, and that next year we'll see the new entity formed, we'll see the DPDI bill going through government, which will enable us to legislate or enforce things should we need to as we move forward, and I suspect we will. So good progress is being made.
And thank you, Marion. And James, from the TPP perspective, be interested in your thoughts as well in terms of the benefits that you're starting to see from products that are live in market, the impact that open banking is already having today.
Thank you, Ellie, and nice to be here and meet everyone today. So I think the answer to that question I can probably divide into 3 sort of live examples that bring to life some of the experiences we've had and the journey that we've been on as EcoSpend. So EcoSpend is an open banking platform, and we launched really at the end of 2020, and our absolute sort of claim to fame is the fact we won the, I think, single biggest use case for open banking payments in the world, which is with HMRC. So we threw our hat into the ring. We competed against 50 different TPPs, including some very big global brands, and we won. We signed the contract in January 2021, and we were live by March, and we've now processed, I think, over 17 billion pounds, that's billion with a B, for HMRC across all their different tax regimes. So I'm sure this room is full of industry leaders who will have hopefully paid some tax in various forms using our technology. So that's one big example of how open banking payments has really delivered. The other example I can give you is we recently went live with another government department called NS&I that they sell premium bonds, and I think in just over 3 months, we have now equaled the volumes that they're doing on cards. So that's another big stat. I think they're one of the biggest clients of this particular card issuer, and we're now doing as much volume as they are. That's in 3 months. You don't get a better interest rate if you use an open banking payment, and it just works, driven by the fact that everyone has an online bank account and typically banks on a smartphone these days. And the final example, Ellie, is Hargreaves Lansdown, the UK's #1 investment platform. We went live with them, I think, about a year ago. And really excitingly, they have just published their annual report. And in their annual report, they actually cited open banking payments as being a major cost saving for them. And the products that we're live with, we're delivering about 25% of their volumes. So you've now got a FTSE 100 company, the leading player within their market, citing open banking as a reason for enhanced digitization, adapting to modern consumer behaviors, and importantly, saving money. So those are 3 examples where we've seen huge success. Clearly, an open banking payment journey is not always going to be what the consumer wants. Obviously, in some cases, we love to tap and go with Apple Pay and so on. But in cases such as the ones I've mentioned, we really have seen incredible adoption. And the final thing I'll say is we're not at the inflection point quite yet, probably not for another 12 to 18 months, which is when we hit full ubiquity for this. So everything we've seen so far is a reflection of the amazing work that Marion and her team have done at OBL to really position the market for mass adoption. So hopefully we're going to be one of a few, alongside TrueLayer and others, that are going to be ready for this when that inflection point comes.
And Robert, as well, from a AIS perspective, I think, James, there were some really fantastic examples there of payments use cases. I think it's also important when we're talking today about FinTech as a force for good, thinking a lot about the data-based or the AIS use cases for open banking as well, and the opportunities that that can enable for bringing financially excluded consumers into the financial ecosystem, and also, you know, enhancing the efficiency that small businesses can derive in running their businesses through open banking. Would you like to comment on some of those?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. Well, the first thing I'd say is that TrueLayer is, you know, we consider ourselves a payment company, and I think that when we were founded in 2016, on the back of PSD2 and the kind of openness of data that regulation brought in with the CMA order, it probably wasn't a widespread or commonly held belief that the use cases, you know, 8 years on or 7, 8 years on would be predominantly, or there would be a lot of payments use cases there. So I think that when we at TrueLayer talk about the data availability, there's 2 things going on from an AIS perspective. One is the standalone AIS products. So as you rightly say, and like looking and listening to other people in the room today, you talk about wealth tech, pensions, savings, and all these other financial services use cases which revolve around and involve and require the openness of end user data. Then those are standalone use cases which have made very, very powerful cases for, you know, FinTech being a force for good and for this piece of regulation being a force for good. But then clearly there's the payments world. which James and I are involved in, and that's how we probably perceive ourselves within our companies, and that's how our customers often perceive ourselves increasingly. And with open banking payments, what you have is data-enabled payments, and those create wonderful user experiences, safer user experiences. And so the AIS over time, and I'm not sure this is kind of like a universal view, but my view is that the AIS element, the data-enabled element, will become a feature rather than the product itself over time. You'll see in payments companies, open banking payments companies selling to merchants with the data features and the customer benefits and the safety features as a kind of point of difference that they sell as opposed to other payment methods which won't have them organically and by default.
I totally agree, and I think that's one of the factors that reflects the maturity of the open banking ecosystem in the UK compared to a lot of markets around the world. Marion, you talked about the ever-increasing volumes that we have in the UK. The HMRC example is globally always held up as one of the leading examples of open banking around the world. Adam, you represent Innovate Finance, so you get to see and hear the views from all of the different participants in the industry and hear the feedback from the industry. What do you think has made the UK, such the hallmark of open banking globally and really considered one of the world leaders?
Yeah, Ellie, I'd pick out 3 ingredients. One, in the UK, the regulations are comprehensive, and specifically, the reason why we've seen payments really take off with companies like TrueLayer is the CMA went beyond PSD, and that's why we've seen more payments innovation here than in the rest of the EU. And as we go forward, probably on the basis of commercial agreement, not regulated, but we still need to see those active regulators kind of standing over the players to make sure we keep progressing. Second ingredient would be government embracing it. So HMRC is a fantastic example. As you say, it's got people using open banking payments, trusting it. Again, looking forward, we want to see more of that. I want to be able to pay my council tax, my car tax, by open banking. So the more government extends that, the better. And then I think the third ingredient has been the standards and the fantastic work of OBL of, again, a comprehensive set of API standards that have driven open data sharing, so that when we talk about FinTech as a force for good, the credit unions in the UK have adopted that for cheaper, better credit decisioning, and we've heard people like Totally Money have used that for better financial advice, and almost there's an opportunity now to actually use that to grow the economy by looking at, can we export those standards? We've led the way in the UK, can we now share those and encourage interoperability in areas like payments with other countries?
Thanks, Adam. It's a real privilege, I think, to be part of the market in the UK that's done so well, but also has so far to go. So I'm now interested to get the views from the panel in terms of what's next. So what's next in terms of the use cases and how that can really drive value for consumers, small businesses in the market?
So the payments is fantastic, and clearly that's where most of the use cases lie, but I just want to highlight that open banking facilitates many other use cases as well. I see digital identity companies in the audience and security. A lot of organizations are using open banking to help their decision making. It's not for a product to on sale necessarily, but it permeates lots that we do, and we see an awful lot in terms of force for good for the vulnerable, for other use cases, and we can talk about those where we're helping society get access to benefits or getting access to credit where hitherto they've not been available. So what's next? So JROC, work streams and all of that good stuff. What's next is leveling up in terms of more users, more participants. We have another 80, account providers beyond the CMA 9 to work with. There are numerous TPPs, numerous organizations. We need a framework. We need the new entity. That new entity needs to be underpinned with an economic model that is fair for all. You cannot have a central infrastructure unless it's funded. It cannot be sustainable unless it's funded. And that's through those who use need to pay, but they need to do it in an equitable, fair and balanced way so that innovators, FinTech can build their business models with clarity, knowing what they're dealing with, and the larger institutions, the bigger banks, get a sense of fairness and they're not funding everything, which they are currently, and we need to move beyond that. So all of that needs to be buttoned down. Sounds very easy, really difficult to do. And that needs to be sorted, certainly from, we're working on it now, through into early next year. Then we start to see more happening. And it was mentioned in terms of moving beyond other sectors. So I was at the Conservative Party conference on Tuesday, at Labour next week, and the vision from the minister was, well, look, we'll have a central standards body. That won't be OBL, that will be a central standards body that sets the standards for other implementation entities, and their vision is communications, energy, and then other sectors as we move through. So with one set of standards for interoperability, the power of bank data, financial data, coupled with the power of another sector, blows your mind in terms of what's possible to improve services to consumers and businesses and the economy. But then, we shouldn't underestimate the pace of change in the rest of the world. You know, it's in dozens of jurisdictions now across the globe, moving quickly in different ways. We are stronger in terms of volumes and regulatory framework because of PSD2 and CMA order, but don't underestimate what's happening elsewhere. We are being approached by other countries. Can we share your directory? Can we understand what you're doing? No is the answer right now. We cannot do those things until we've bedded down, we have a central entity, and we have a market that works effectively for all.
Well, I don't want to be the horrible capitalist after you've given the very, very correct answer about the future. I mean, I think open banking is this quite delicate flower that's been nurtured through, in no small part, the help of the CMA. It's not just a piece of regulation that's set to work immediately. It didn't. And what you've mentioned, everything you've mentioned there about continuing to nurture that as we move towards open finance and broader use cases is absolutely correct. But from a commercial standpoint, I think what we'll see in the payment space, we've got highly successful product market fit in certain use cases, often around financial services. For me, the future is e-commerce payments. There's a huge amount of challenging work to be done by people who work in open banking to demonstrate that they can challenge card payments in e-commerce, and that requires reliability, reputation, recourse, things that the cards have built up over the years with their schemes to successfully do and build that trust, and that is the next challenge, and that's what the future holds for TrueLayer, and I'm sure many other open banking payments companies.
Everything they've said. Two extras. Earlier, Claire Moriarty of Citizens Advice described how they're getting more demand than they can serve in terms of debt advice. She also mentioned a hackathon we did with EY and Citizens Advice on developing an open banking tool to enable them to provide more advice. So I think, looking ahead, working with the ecosystem to make that a reality is something to really look forward to and focus on. And then looking actually ahead to after lunch, we've got Gavin Starks talking about Project Perseus. I think that's an example of bringing energy data together with financial data. So we're starting to see the convergence of two different open data schemes to tackle climate change.
Thank you. Everything they said, plus I would highlight what Marion said around the data. It feels like payments is the entry sort of level engagement for organizations with open banking, but the real power will come from how do they leverage the data, both for the good of the consumer and also for the good of their organization, how they can segment and deliver more targeted and better products. I think obviously from a vulnerable customer point of view, we're working on some interesting projects with some of our clients around supporting vulnerable customers in being more cognizant and helping them manage their finances better. But then, of course, from an organizational perspective, the economies and insights and benefits that this technology brings is just completely mind-blowing. It's it's a phenomenal thing. One of the reasons I joined the open banking kind of movement is when I first saw it, it made me think that if you consider Facebook and Google and the amount of value they've created purely by understanding someone's browser history and browser intent, and then you look at how much you could create around understanding someone's complete financial history dating back 6 or 7 years, then it is truly and utterly mind-blowing, to use your expression, Marion.
Can I just add one other thing, which I think is really important, and that's that Apple Pay, or Apple, have chosen the UK to be the first country in which it uses open banking with the Apple Pay wallet. And what it will do is when you do that magical double click and it's done, as if by magic, one of the challenges with that is it's just too easy to spend. And so there are, you know, I won't look at young people, I think I'll say me. It's just too easy, isn't it? But what will happen going forward, and the launch will come shortly, is that your balance will come up. So that just before you do that little, it's like an affordability check for yourself. Now, Apple have chosen the UK, and they've chosen the UK to launch this in because of the ecosystem we have, because of the connectivity, because of the standards, because of the monitoring. And so this will be interesting. So everyone will be an API call. So we'll start to see volumes go up. Will this be the killer use case? Probably not, but they're coming. And where we start to see data helping consumers, big tech, small tech, FinTech, all coming together to do great things. So I think that's something as a country we should be really proud of, and it's something that's aimed at helping consumers.
Thank you, Marion. And I'm conscious we're keeping everyone from lunch, but I wanted to just finish off with, there's so much potential, and I think there's a huge momentum behind this movement in the UK. A lot of work to do over the next 12 months, but a final one-word or one-sentence answer from everyone, and we'll start at the other end this time in terms of what you're most excited about over the next 12 months with open banking.
I think it's the inflection point. When does this actually break through into the mainstream? And I think it's getting closer.
Yeah, and I think we've talked quite a lot about payments, and I think in the next year we're really going to see that take off.
The DPDI bill and the JROT report find a model that works for everyone commercially so that we can take it forward so it doesn't feel like a compliance exercise for banks anymore.
I'll take all those three, and then I'll add, let's do it quickly. Let's get it buttoned next year, and then start to see growth.
There you go. There are 4 fantastic calls for action to everyone. And thank you everyone on the panel, and thank you everyone for patiently waiting for your lunch.